we can look back on an exciting weekend of soccer. This week, we can just look back. It was a strange weekend. Some very poor performances from some very good teams. Spurs would be notable, losing 2-1 at home to Newcastle. But to discuss it all, we're joined now by John Giles and Liam Brady. Liam, you went to a match in London. You went to see Chelsea, Manchester United on Saturday. In the end, Casemiro got an equaliser in overtime in the 90th minute. But in your view, it wasn't a great game.
No, I was disappointed. I was really looking forward to it, Eamon, going as a neutral.
Yeah.
The amount of money that's been spent on both these teams and the star players supposedly on show. I was very disappointed with what I watched. I know the conditions got very bad in the second half, the wind and the rain and things like that. But in the first half, Chelsea were kind of passive, Eamon. They didn't go for Manchester United. I expected them, Chelsea being on a good run. I expected them to play much better than they did. I was disappointed when I came out from what I'd seen, to be honest.
Yeah, John and I were talking during the match, Liam. John, United were much the better team in the first half, I thought. But then when you look at Chelsea, they have Aubameyang, who has form, and they have Raheem Sterling now up front. It's quite difficult for Graham Potter, the new Chelsea manager, with those two in particular in the team. We watched the match and you thought United were by far the better team, but I wouldn't disagree with Liam about the overall quality of the game, would you?
No, you'd expect more, Eamon.
Yeah.
But first of all, Chelsea, Graham Potter, new manager, Eamon, it's going to take him a bit of time.
Yes.
I think, to sort out that team and what's his best team. He's a lot of talented players, but you've got to get a team, and he hasn't got that yet. So it's going to take him a bit of time to do so. From Manchester United's point of view, I think it was fairly good teamwork in relation to what they have been doing. I think he's trying to he's a harder job, I think, getting a team together. They look more like a team in the game without being very good, or the match being very good. You'd expect more from it. But I think for different reasons, Chelsea for different reasons, Potter trying to get what is his best team. And also the Manchester United manager trying to sort out the problems there. As we know, they had Ronaldo again from the previous week and that. So, but I'd say the overall match standard was disappointing.
Yeah, Liam, looking at the United team, Sancho, who was a big money signing, a player we heard a lot about, an English player who went to Germany, seemed to have his own mind, came back and scored a very important goal for United. I think it was against Liverpool. He was taken off after 52 minutes and he hasn't really been consistently in the team. Rashford again, subbed, not quite doing it. So, I think he's put a shape.
United's three forwards, Eamon, were poor on the day. Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, and this lad Anthony that's come from Ajax. Spent a lot of money. Like he faded badly. He started off not bad, but he faded badly. Rashford and Sancho, I don't think they're the most intelligent players, I have to say. With football intelligence, they didn't link up together. Sancho hardly troubled Chelsea defence. So, that's one of the things I was looking forward to. All these guys are supposedly exciting players, cost a lot of money. And I was let down by the best player on the park was Eriksen, I thought. In the first half anyway, I think the conditions didn't help him in the second half, but he was the best passer of the ball out there. So many of the midfield passes go backwards and sideways now. Yeah. And I was talking to John last night about it. And, I don't know, John came up with a thing that the players might be interested in their stats, not giving the ball away because they don't really risk anything anymore, midfield players.
Yeah, John, there's a lot of that around. Jorginho in particular now, he scored a penalty which gave Chelsea a lead with 3 minutes to go. But he's a great man for the square pass. And as Liam says, a lot of players are doing that. And the game is, for many people, it's almost governed by statistics. It's how they judge everything, including managers and coaches.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part of it, and I think it gets to the players. There's a thing apparently with the coaches that, say, a midfield player has to get into the opponent's box at, say, 7 or 8 times in the game.
Yeah.
Now,
well, I was playing in midfield. I got in 7 or 8 times a season.
Well, as we know, sometimes in matches, a midfield player can get into the box 8 times or 9 times if it's on. There's some matches you can't get in at all.
Yeah.
But if you have the coach or the manager saying, "Well, I want you to get into the box, say 6 times, 8 times in a match," the fullback's on the ball, he's in trouble, and the midfield player runs into the box to get his stats right. It becomes crazy stuff, and I think it has affected the game. That keeping possession of the ball, completed passes. I was saying to Liam last night, when I was a youngster coming into the match yesterday, Jimmy Murphy, who you knew well, was a great coach, said, "John, when you get on the ball, the first thing you look for, can you put somebody through?
Yeah.
Can you put it through past?
Yeah.
Right? If you can't, then obviously you do something else. But I think the first thing that players are looking for now, a lot of them midfield, not to give the ball away. So they get the ball in the middle of the field and they give it back to the fullback. And you see it in a lot of matches, and you get up near the box, right, and the quick pass, and next thing, you actually sometimes going back to the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And I think the stats have a lot to do with that for players. I think maybe the coaches take plenty of notice of it when they shouldn't do, and certainly the press, you see stats every week. And I think it's got into the game.
Yeah, there are companies now that will provide stats for you. That's all they do. They provide statistics on every game and on every facet of the game. Corner kicks, throw-ins, tackles, assists, and all of that. Liam, there was a big row on television. It was funny, actually, between Roy Keane and Gary Neville. Poor old Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, who I think is a really good analyst and a really articulate analyst. He was just sitting there. They were arguing about Ronaldo. And Keane was saying he's a great player. He shouldn't be subjected to the treatment he's getting from Ten Hag. Whereas Gary Neville was saying Ten Hag is right. Every player has to be treated the same. And if Ronaldo isn't put on as a sub and walks into the dressing room, or if he's taken off and walks into the dressing room, if he disrespects the group ethic, he's subject to punishment like everyone else. I was on Gary Neville's side of the argument, but Roy Keane was fairly furious. He thought that Ronaldo, as a great player, was due more respect. Where are you on that one?
I'd be with Gary Neville. I don't really agree with a lot of what Neville says, but in this case, I would have to agree with him. You have to have a group standard, as you say. Fergie wouldn't have put up with that, would he? So
no way.
I think Ten Hag is right. Roy Keane, I don't know, he probably remembers his time at United, and he probably thinks, well, I wasn't treated very well by Ferguson in the end, and maybe he's looking back and linking the two,
Yeah.
But Ronaldo, we saw what Ronaldo did last week. Once the subs went on, the 5th sub went on, he got off the bench and he walked into the dressing room. That's no way to behave, really, is it?
No. John, whose side would you be on? Gary Neville, who I know you love, or Roy Keane, who you really do love?
Well, I'm not very often on Gary Neville's side, but I'd have to say I would on this particular situation. You can't. He's been a great player. We know that, Ronaldo, and he should be treated with respect. But if the manager wants him to go on as a sub, then he should go on as a sub. He can't walk into the dressing room. This is the second time he's done that.
That's right.
Apparently, he did it in the pre-season match, where he walked in and cleared off before the other players came in. There's been a lot of great players, Eamon, who have to behave, no matter how great they were or are, in a way that's beneficial to the team.
Yeah.
And respect for the manager. I don't think any player is entitled, no matter what he's done in the game, to not obey what the manager wants him to go on the sub. You mightn't agree with it, but you got to go on and do it.
Yeah.
So in this case, I definitely would be on Neville's side.
Yeah, me too, for what it's worth. Now, John, Liverpool away to Notts Forest, who are bottom of the league and have had a very, very tough time since they were promoted. They brought in 23 new players once they were promoted in the summer, and they've had a hard time. They beat Liverpool 1-0, John. You watched the match. I watched the match. I was very disappointed in Liverpool.
Well, yeah, Forest were very good, Eamon. You know, I think that Steve Cooper, the manager, as we know, is the manager, has had a very, very tough time this season. A new team promoted. But I must say, on the weekend, I thought their spirit and their attitude was brilliant. And I think it's no coincidence that they gave him a new 3-year contract. You know, I think that was good.
They gave it to him last week when they were bottom of the league, and he'd had a nightmare start.
Yes, but you could see when that I think it's a help to the players, Eamon, to know, like, this guy, we haven't done well, and obviously the morale with them, but he's not going to be sacked. He's going to be here for the next 3 years.
Yep.
Right, so we better have a go. I think they had a real go. I thought they played really, really, really well for us. By their effort alone was terrific. And to be fair to Liverpool, an awful lot of injuries.
Yeah, 6
going into the match.
first
now,
team players.
Expect them to win. They didn't play well, but they missed some chances. Forest missed some chances as well. But it was Van Dijk more than anybody else that missed the chances for Liverpool.
Yeah.
But I thought Forest were really good. I thought Liverpool had an awful lot of injuries going into the game, but it was certainly it's not. You wouldn't expect Liverpool to lose the game.
No,
but there wasn't much in it. They did have chances, but it was a disappointing result for them, definitely.
Yeah, Liam, given your coach who did a miracle to get them promoted, because when he went there, they were in the bottom half of the championship. Giving him a new contract when you've had a nightmare start to the season and a bottom of the league. It shows a lot of character, shows the values of the owner to be good. And that was the reason, although I like Liverpool to win games because I'm a fan, I was really pleased that Forest got the result they got. And that may turn the season around for them.
Yeah, it's, a great thing to beat Liverpool. And you can see how happy the fans were and the team spirit of the side, as John has mentioned, it is about a confidence in the manager, and a win like that can maybe set them on the way. There's going to be plenty of teams, and I watched the highlights of matches. There's going to be plenty of teams in the mix for relegation this year, Eamon.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know who's going to go.
Yeah.
Leicester got a great win. Wolves look as if they're in trouble. But Forest beating Liverpool is a huge, huge bonus.
Yeah, and just to move on to Arsenal, Liam, away to Southampton, and it's a game, if you're thinking about winning the championship, it's a game you'd want to win. Xhaka gave Arsenal a lead after 11 minutes, but Southampton battled and got their point, and effectively it looked like 2 points dropped by Arsenal.
Oh, definitely, Eamon. Yeah, Arsenal had the chances to finish the match off in that first half hour.
Yeah.
Jesus had a couple of great chances. He didn't take them, And then I think Arsenal slipped into a bit of complacency, thinking that Southampton weren't good enough to get a goal, and they kind of didn't go for the second in the second half, and they let Southampton gradually creep back into the game. And Southampton got a very good goal. It was a good move, good finish from Armstrong. And Arsenal, at the end of that match, must have been saying to themselves, well, how did we drop 2 points there?
Yes.
There's a bit of complacency, I would have said.
Right. John, Spurs, in the papers this morning, they're saying that Antonio Conte is under pressure. The fans want him out. They're third in the league. They're in the Champions League places. But Newcastle, I watched the match, and I thought Newcastle played. Eddie Howe, I think, is a really, really good coach. He's got them into fourth place in the Premier League, John. Now, they have been able to spend Saudi money, 200 million of it. But even so, it's a feat to get there. And Tottenham, I've watched Tottenham now the last 4 weeks, and they've been getting progressively worse, John. They look tired, don't have a good shape, and they don't actually have quality players.
Well, I think Conte has done a remarkable job with what he has. They're still third in the league.
Yeah.
And Newcastle were very good, and obviously their results have been very good. But I was very, very impressed with them. I think, as you say, Eddie Howe has done a terrific job.
Yeah, he did a great job at Bournemouth for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, he really did his stuff. They were working hard. They were doing all the things that you'd expect a team to do when they had the ball, when they didn't have the ball. So, I watched the match, and Spurs, I mean, it was a bad result for Spurs because you would expect them to win. But I think Newcastle will upset an awful lot of teams. And as far as Conte is concerned, I mean, in my opinion now, I think you agree, I think Liam does as well, he's a great coach. And, he spent very, very little money to get them to where they are in relation to where they were when they first came in.
Yeah.
No, they haven't spent loads of money. I mean, I think Newcastle has probably spent more money.
They have.
Than Spurs have. So I think he's done a remarkable job to get them in the third in the Premiership. He got them into the Champions League last year without spending anything. But from Newcastle's point of view, I mean, I think he's done a terrific job. I mean, he's brought some players in. He hasn't spent a fortune, but they were very good. You know, he's moved players around into midfield positions, centre forwards, and he's bought well. So he's done a terrific job. I thought it was a really, really top-class game that Newcastle deserved to win.
Yeah, and he moved Dyer into the back four, which might get Dyer a trip to the World Cup in the England back four. Liam, Newcastle, this thing about Eddie Howe, Liam, Bournemouth were in administration. They were bottom of the fourth division. He stayed with them for 10 years. He didn't do a runner when they were in trouble, and he stuck there for 10 years, got them into the Premier League, kept them in the Premier League. The ground holds 12,000 at Bournemouth. I've played there many times myself. You've probably never even seen it because you were at a level of the game that didn't involve going to Bournemouth. He's done a fantastic job. What I want to ask you is, particularly because you've been in the game more recently than John or I, is there a thing against English coaches? Isn't it mad that Manchester United, Spurs, all these clubs never really went for Eddie Howe, never considered him?
No, they're probably kicking themselves now, I mean, because, as you say, not only did he do a great job at Bournemouth, but he also did a brilliant job at Newcastle since he got there. Like when he took over, they were bottom of the league, weren't they?
Yeah, kept them up, which is a miracle.
Yeah, he bought wisely. He bought players that he knew well himself. You know, from being in and around the Premiership and knowing the Championship as well.
Yeah.
So he did a really good job in getting them out of trouble. And this year, he's had the money to go into the transfer market and again, but he hasn't gone mad with the.
No, he hasn't.
And I think he knows exactly what he wants as regards the personnel in his team, how he wants to play, and he buys players to suit what he wants exactly. You know, he'll be under pressure there. I should think, Eamon, to spend money because the Saudi Arabians will want the big name signings. You know, I think they'll be encouraging him, you know, to go big and try and bring big names to Newcastle with the money they have. But he's just doing it very, very shrewdly, isn't he? And I thought his team were very well organised yesterday, and they deserve to win. Although I think we spoke about it. I thought it was a foul on Loris, the first goal. I thought it was obstruction. The referee didn't give it. So I think Spurs were a little bit unlucky with that. But all credit to Newcastle and to Eddie Howe. Yeah,
I must say I disagree. I didn't think it was a foul. And I think Wilson, who's a very, very good player who played for Eddie Howe at Bournemouth, if I'm not mistaken, before he went to Newcastle. I think Eddie Howe sold him to Newcastle. But anyway, John, you saw that incident, John. Was it a foul on the keeper, or did the keeper bring it on himself?
Well, I thought he brought it on himself, Eamon.
Yeah, I did.
But it's very difficult to. I can understand. I think Liam felt the other way. We spoke last night, and I can understand both. I'm not trying to get out of it.
No, I know that.
It was a difficult one. If he had gone the other way, I wouldn't have complained about it much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you about Leeds, John. A very important game yesterday against Fulham, who have done really well. There's a very interesting statistic. When you were at Leeds and Don Revie left and they brought in Brian Clough, it took Brian Clough 44 days to screw the club, to make you all unhappy, and to really finish the project that Don Revie had so successfully built and you had played a great part in. Liz Truss was Prime Minister for 44 days. She screwed England and off she went, and nobody's talking to anyone anymore. It's a remarkable coincidence. Now, I don't take any credit for you told me about it.
No, the main thing is she comes from Leeds.
That's right. She should have known.
That's what the paper should be. Now, a bit of a joke. She lasted the same as Brian Clough, as we know, came to Leeds and lasted 44 days.
Yeah.
And poor Miss Truss has lasted 44 days as Prime Minister. So a little bit of a coincidence, and I don't think there's any relationship between the two of them.
You never know.
I know of.
Psychic things happen. Now, the big deal, John, is that Leeds are in the bottom three this morning.
Yes.
And you don't fancy their coach very much. So this could be curtains for a great club that you were very much a part of making a great club with that great team you had.
Yeah, it's very sad for the supporters, and I think they're in big trouble. I think the coach or manager, whatever he is there, is in big trouble. He says amazing things. That doesn't make sense in what he's going to do, and he's in trouble now because the crowd have turned on him in a big way. And we've all watched them. I thought on Saturday they were really poor.
Yeah.
And they looked like conceding loads of goals. I think his attitude is we're going to attack, which is okay if you have to defend as well. And that doesn't seem to be the case at Leeds. I think the crowd have turned on him as well. But he has said over the weekend that he's very close to the board of directors, and they've assured him that there's no way that he's going to be sacked.
Yeah,
We've heard all that before.
Yeah, Jesse March is his name. He's an American. Who knows what will happen there? But Leeds are significant. But Liam, we were talking yesterday about the general standard. Now, at the start of the season, when we did our first Premier League podcast or preview of it, I think I was saying this is the best league in the world. The English are always saying it's the best in the world. Everything's the best. But I really felt the Premier League was the best with City and Liverpool in particular, the best league in the world. And we were talking yesterday about the standard, how shocked you were watching the Chelsea Man U game on Saturday and in general about the standard.
Well, I don't know whether it's just nostalgia, and I was looking back, but, I remember the Manchester United of Besselaw and Charlton,
Yes, yeah.
And even the Chelsea team with Peter Osgood and Charlie Cook on the wing and things like that.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe it's my mind playing tricks with me, but I didn't see any of the players on show that I watched over the weekend that could play to that standard of those guys I've just mentioned,
Yeah.
The game's got very tactical. It's stop-start. I don't know. The exciting players don't seem to be around anymore. And I saw Kevin De Bruyne's goal yesterday, which was absolutely magnificent. Although it did take I thought a little slight deflection, but he meant to put it into that top corner.
Yeah.
When he's on his day, he's a special player. But we've had discussions about him. And I saw Pep Guardiola say that he hasn't been playing well lately. But he's one of the players that I would put up there as as a player can really excite me on his day,
Yes.
But what I've seen over the weekend, it doesn't compare to the players I've just mentioned, Damon.
Yeah, John, it's an interesting point that Liam makes. I mean, I actually said at the beginning of the season, our first and second podcast, that last season was the best season ever in the Premier League. And I felt that at the time. But I think it's the World Cup playing on players' minds. I was watching Harry Kane yesterday, and I think Harry Kane is kind of lost. I think his head's halfway in Qatar already. And I think a lot of the top players are thinking about the World Cup. The World Cup coming in November, John, and taking up 2 months virtually between the training camps and the competition itself, coming back to play on Christmas Day or the day after Boxing Day. It really has punched a hole in the season, hasn't it?
Well, it's outrageous, Eamon, to have a World Cup in the middle of everybody's season. It's just crazy stuff. Now, I don't know if that is what Liam's talking about in general.
No, I think he's talking about something. Liam is talking about something different. Yeah. I was maybe putting it out there as a reason why this season has been disappointing. There's a kind of shadow. It's going to interfere with the Champions League. Every league in Europe is going to have to pack up at the same time, and players who aren't going to the World Cup are going to be, hanging around for 5 or 6 weeks with nothing to do.
No, it's bad. It's bad planning, Eamon. It's outrageous that you have to have a World Cup, especially where it is in the middle of the season. I mean, it never happened before. It's outrageous. I think what Liam is saying that he's gone to matches and he's disappointed in some of the things that players are doing, or they're not like Aston Charlton. But I think what's happened to the game, Eamon, is again, possession has become a law unto itself.
Yeah.
In other words, you keep possession. Well, when I was a young fella, Jimmy Murphy, the first thing I was told by Jimmy Murphy, get turned around, John. See, can you put somebody through?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, can you put, if you can't, you can't. If you put it, sometimes it's worth a 50-50 chance of doing it. But you must be progressive. But what's happening now, you see, there's a lot of passing, Eamon. Actually, we're playing out from the back now, is one of the things. But I've seen it sometimes where wingers get the ball, and in our day, you say, right, now you're in a position, you take them on. You take on the fullback.
Yeah.
But I've seen it loads of times now. The winger pulls out of it, and before you know it, it's nearly back to the goalkeeper.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
And that happens regularly. Now, I know Liam doesn't want to be sounding like an old-timer. I don't want to be sounding like an old-timer. But that's a fact. Yeah. Possession has become the law. You keep possession of the ball.
Yeah.
Right? I heard Guardiola there last week saying 16 passes. He'd like to see 16 passes before we score a goal. What's wrong with one pass? The through ball to score a goal. No, 16 passes is most unusual. And he's not the only one, but it becomes, there's a copycat effect in football, and there always has been.
Yes.
Playing out from the back now, for example.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, really dangerous most of the time to do it. It's become fashionable. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Right? And keeping possession of the ball is another one. I said, lads get in good positions, they stop. And again, you think it goes back to their stats. How does the stats come out of it? Oh, the 90% completion passes. Well, you would do if you weren't taking a chance sometimes on the pass that really means something.
Yes.
That's the way I see it, and I think Liam sees it in the same way. And I think you probably see it in the same way.
I do. Yeah, Liam, just to finish off, I mean, I think Pep Guardiola's way of playing is what John is describing, although John is
it's not Pep Guardiola.
No, possession is a big part of City's thing.
Yeah,
they wear you down.
But he's winning matches and winning trophies doing what he's doing, and he's got good players to do it. I think it's overdone.
Right.
But you get a copycat effect where the players who can't do it, and they're trying to be Manchester City, or whatever it is they're doing in the coaching, that the stats are showing, right, possession of the ball, or 90%, 100% completion is got into the player's head. In other words, a through ball is on, which is 50-50 chance. But pulling out of it and giving it back to the fullback is 100% possession of the ball. I think that's affected the game in a big way. Now,
I want to ask both of you about Steven Gerrard. Liam sacked by Aston Villa. Villa go forward and win 4-0 yesterday against Brentford at home. What's your opinion of that?
He did a great job at
Rangers.
To stop Celtic as he did, and then he decided that the opportunity at Villa was what he wanted, to start off in the Premiership. I think he's always had his eye on maybe going back to Liverpool as the manager.
Yeah.
But something John pointed out, and something I agree with as well, he's even at Rangers and at Villa, he's been openly critical of his players. You know, very, very critical of his players. And he had this bust up with Mings, didn't he, the England defender?
Yes. Yeah.
He went public on that as well. I think
took
Mings
the captaincy off him.
Quite a popular lad with the Villa players and things like that. And I don't know, maybe there was some kind of friction there between the Villa players and him, because yesterday another coach came in and made a couple of changes, the interim coach, but they played with real spirit and real endeavour yesterday, and it was almost like they were glad that they weren't under Steven Gerrard anymore.
John, you also didn't think it was the right decision, and to be fair to Steven Gerrard, Villa are not down with the dead man, but they're heading in that direction, or they were before yesterday, heading in that direction. But it is a short amount of time he's had, and he did spend some money, but he didn't spend fortunes.
No, he didn't spend a lot of money, Eamon. I saw them against Chelsea last week when they were beaten 2-0, and I thought they were good.
Yeah.
I thought they were going in the right direction. But probably we don't know, because we're guessing now what happened in the inside. But I think my theory on it would be, Eamon, that he was very, very hard on the players.
Yes.
You know, very hard.
As Liam was saying, yeah.
Yeah, you know, very hard on them in the dress and publicly, you know, which is I think it's a no-go area at all. I think a manager should keep these opinions to himself with his players. But the likes of Mings and things, and I think probably in the dressing room, I'm only guessing now, very, very hard on them.
Yeah.
You know, really hard on them, and sometimes you can be too hard, because the likes of Mings and the other lad Watkins are good players.
Yeah.
Watkins in particular.
Yeah, very good.
Watkins always looks scared to me on the pitch.
Yes.
You know, like a manager can give somebody a telling off, as we know, but don't kill them. You know, don't overdo it, because they're going out to play for you the next week again. And that's only my theory on it, because I don't really know. But I'd say there might have been relief from the players, and yesterday it could be a very good example to say, right, this is what we're going to do. This is what I'm going to do. That's the way that's what it looks like, Eamon, you know?
Yep. Okay, John and Liam, we're very grateful to you. As always, that's John Giles and Liam Brady. And we're grateful to two great players, two great judges, and thanks to them.